Not a man to mince his words. Donald Trump gave Europe both barrels this week. He called its leaders weak over Ukraine, and he charged that the whole continent was in decline because of its refusal to defend Western values. From where I sit, I don't think he's wrong. The continent that loves talking about its values seems utterly incapable of defending them anymore. Let's look at the facts, because they're damning. New military aid for Ukraine in 2025 is on track to fall to its lowest level since Russia launched its brutal invasion in 2022. Europe has managed, brace yourself, to allocate less than $5 billion in new military support from September to the end of October. $5 billion. For a war on its own doorstep, for a conflict that it claims defines the future of its continent. And remember, this war isn't happening in a vacuum. US support has essentially stalled, and Europe is supposed to be stepping up, filling in that gap. In 2022 through to 2024, the annual average in combined global support was around $49 billion. This year, Europe and others have scraped together just $38 billion. To simply match previous years, they'd need to conjure up somehow another $10.5 billion in the final weeks of the year, requiring a monthly pace to more than double what they've been managing lately. Is anyone seriously betting that Europe's going to suddenly find the courage, the clarity, and frankly, the checkbook that seems to have been missing all year? One person that doesn't think they're going to do it, is President Trump. Meanwhile, Kyiv and Ukraine and those brave fighters, they are running on fumes. Russia launched over 5,400 long-range drones just last month, more than double what it lobbed at Ukraine in November 2024. Ukraine is innovating. Yes, it's building more of its own equipment, more of its own drones, more of its own air defenses. But let's be honest, there are some things that only the West can provide them with. Take the Patriot missile system, for example. There's no substitute for US air defenses when your cities are being lit up day in, day out by Russian ballistic missiles. Now, here's the good news. Europe could do more. The resources do exist. The military industry exists. The urgency could and should exist. But the bad news is, it simply doesn't. Even within Europe, the disparities are staggering. Germany has nearly tripled its average monthly support. France and Britain have more than doubled theirs. So yeah, that sounds impressive. Until you realise that even with those increases, all three are far, far behind the Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Norway, Sweden, when you measure their contributions relative to the size of their economies. The Nordics are outpacing Europe's largest economies because they actually understand the threat. They see it. They live on the front line of Russian aggression. They don't have time for the complacency seen elsewhere across Europe. So take your Italys and your Spains, two of the continent's largest economies, two countries that enjoy every possible benefit of European peace and prosperity. So what are they doing about it? Nothing. Well, virtually nothing. Italy has actually reduced its already meagre allocation this year. And those tight-fisted leftists running Spain, they haven't recorded a single euro of new military aid in 2025. Nothing. Zero. Zip. That isn't burden sharing. That is burden dodging. And while Europe tiptoes around its responsibilities, the United States has been carrying most of the load. Since January 2022, the US has spent over $130 billion in support. That rises to $187 billion when you include training and stockpile replenishment. Say what you want about Washington and say what you want about this administration, but America's been always putting its money where its mouth is. Now, of course, the Trump administration has laid out its new national security strategy, one that emphasizes hard strength, strategic clarity, and a return to America's core interests. Trump has been perfectly clear. If Europe wants America to keep playing global policeman, then Europe must finally start acting like an adult. And that means paying its share. That means taking the threat of Russia seriously. And it means no more hiding behind American skirts every time the world gets ugly. And honestly, he's right. Trump's doctrine is simple. America will support its allies, but only if those allies stop freeloading and start to pull their weight. For Ukraine, that means Europe needs to step up and step up soon. No more speeches, no more moral lectures, but with real, tangible, muscular support. Tanks, missiles, ammunition, air defence systems, the things that actually stop Russian forces and give Putin proper pause for thought. Even NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte, hardly a MAGA man, has said the same thing. His words last week were blunt. Allies must accelerate contributions. In diplomatic terms, that's the equivalent of shouting, "Wake up!" Because here's the harsh reality. Wars aren't won with outrage. They're won with ammunition. They're won with air defences. They're won with nations capable of acting decisively, not just endless talking shops. Europe likes to call itself a geopolitical power. Well, here is their chance to prove it. The time for excuses are over.